Hey, quants, let's go ahead and get our video going for the day. If you guys aren't aware of this, I've kind of developed a fairly consistent pattern of recording on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'll probably just continue with that moving forward and see how that works out. Every once in a while, I might throw in a little video. I did want to throw in a quick short video just when I saw that this massive kind of capitulation candle was coming down, and to be fair, I was like, I don't know for sure if it's capitulation, but we were just seeing some massive volume on those ones. If I just zoom out here, you'll see how extreme that volume was. And so with that said, I expected a little bit of a bounce or some reaction off of that. Also coupling that with the midpoint date for Gann cycle timing and some of the astrology stuff that I followed. I thought it might be interesting. And with that said, like, I typically don't do a lot with the astrology specific stuff. However, I do find it very interesting. And so I've actually been creating a kind of a curated list of information about this stuff. I'm thinking about creating an email list that kind of just does some Gann specific details to keep myself updated on what the current Gann cycle dates are. I know there's some indicators out there. I think I haven't looked at too many of them, to be honest, and the ones that I did look at I didn't find too interesting. So maybe if I dig more I might find something, but also just because I love building stuff, I would prefer to just build one myself. And so I might end up building like a Gann seasonal kind of indicator, and maybe also include some of the astrology stuff there, maybe things you can turn on and off. So if you're interested in that, let me know. If you're interested in a potential email list, where you just get some kind of market updates that have that type of information, let me know. I could probably put something like that together pretty easily. And right now I'm just consuming that information. To be fair, I'm using some AI stuff to go out and collect this information for me and give me a daily brief. You see a lot of people talking about that kind of stuff. Doing that kind of thing, and I've found it interesting so far. I definitely see some value in potentially having that as like an email list. If you guys are interested in that, let me know. Like I said, I could probably throw something together like that pretty quick. So let's get on to the other stuff. So I did say last Friday that I would kind of dig back into some of the old stuff that I'd looked at, and I noticed that what I had done in the past, a lot of the things that I had done in the past, because it just happens that I get consumed building stuff, and I don't think to come back and look at that stuff once it's kind of like fallen out of. It's either been invalidated and or it's no longer interesting, and so I'm going to go through some of those details today. So. I will at some point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder here for these two. So these are the patterns that we're currently looking at here that obviously fell out. My expectation is that we are getting the 2 green bars on the histogram. So I expect some continuation there. We got the buy signal on the stochastic. We got I don't remember which one's K or D here, but we got the faster moving stochastic passing over the slower moving stochastic, which is what gives us that buy signal. Knife still has a long way to go if it's going to spike up here. The one thing that doesn't look favorable right now is the declining volume. So there's not a lot of volume here, although the last 2 days were over weekend. So I would kind of expect that. And Friday we had a high volume day. So if I'm only looking at the oscillators that I use, or the stochastic and the MACD stuff, along with price action here and the weekly volume, then what I'm expecting here is an uptick in volume, and for this to come up and likely come up and touch for a retest of this as potential support. Now, obviously that doesn't have to happen. You can see there's a little bit of support, or what will be likely a little bit of resistance right here. So it could struggle in this area. Maybe it just gets up there and dies out. If it does, then I would say price action is just looking even more bearish than what I would have anticipated. But where did we get all the way down to here? About just 60,000. So anyways, yeah, I'm kind of expecting this touch to come up here. So I was obviously wrong about the touch, this getting all the way up and just satisfying that with a nice little touch. So As I said, eventually, you know, it's going to oscillate through and it'll probably touch that eventually. But at this point, considering where price is and where the 200s are, I don't think a touch at this point of the 200s would be that interesting. Well, it would be very interesting. So, however, if that happens, I expect everyone would be turning bullish at that point. I would like to see it on top of the 200s before that happens, but in the more near term, I think we could see a touch around the 84,000 area to see if we're going to get some resistance there and then just continue on down further, or maybe basing out further. That was a pretty severe drop. I did look at that on the daily time frame. So so I'm expecting price to go up there. Let's go. And I was talking about this pattern, so I'm going to go ahead and hide this pattern here. And then what I want to do, did I not hide that other one? And so what I want to do is I did have this current patterns folder, which they are currently not the current patterns. And so the reason I wanted to bring this up, because even though I didn't get that touch of the 200s, what I noticed here, and this is fairly often, if you draw these like spider line kind of things, and I mean, it could be totally random, obviously. I don't play a lot of the patterns, although sometimes I just like to practice drawing patterns myself. And so one thing I noticed when I turned these on, I was like, oh, I had these old patterns on here. I wonder where that landed. And it actually was, I thought it was just interesting that it did come up. Even after it lost that pattern, it came down, based out, came up, touched this pattern. So if I had had this on the chart, I don't know if I would have taken more action here as opposed to waiting for this. But, you know, I just wanted to point that out because I did have that in the past. And I thought that was somewhat interesting. The other thing that I wanted to take a look at was, which one do I want to take a look at first? Let's go ahead and take a look at the fibs from the top. And so this was the fib coming from basically the bottom of when this past cycle started all the way up to the top. And so the point of this, and I did go through this when I was like saying, you could sell here, you could sell here. These are like, depending on if you're using Gann swing indicator or if you're using the master strategy that I have here, or if you're just strictly using fibs, when would you have potentially maybe gotten out? To be fair, I don't know that I use these specific fibs for getting out there, but these fibs in particular, what I wanted to call out is that we're sitting right around the 0.5 here. And I think, yeah, I don't have logarithmic on right now. If I turned on logarithmic, I think it's going to, let's go ahead and turn on the auto here. So yeah, we're going to be at like the 2.6. And so if we're on logarithmic, we still got to get the 0.38 touch. But I want to go back to where I was. Is it Alt L? I'll just click the button. I can't remember if it's Alt L or Control L. And so from a Gann perspective, this is sitting at the 0.5 level. On a non-logarithmic chart. And so even though we kind of blew past that, we almost touched the 618 here, and then we came back up here. So this, seeing this, I guess, would not be that surprising because we would expect some contention here. What I would say was a little bit surprising is that we had all this price action up here, and then we just fell right below there. Now, because we not because we fell through that, it didn't have to come back up. But again, just talking about the likelihood of that happening had a likely chance for that occurring because we normally do get a lot of play around the 0.5 there. And so that's where we're saying now, where we're at now. And so I think, you know, we'll see if with that said, despite me saying I think we could get up here, get a retouch, and then fall back down, the fact that we're hanging out at the 0.5, the counterpoint to that is that we are at the 0.5, and if it doesn't break through the 0.5, then we're just probably going to go, likely go lower. I don't think it'll just hang out at this 0.5 level, so something to be aware of for myself as well. And so let's go ahead and look at the other one that I wanted to look at. I'll just turn these on for a split second. So I do those parabolas. I mentioned that I don't really do that too much. So you had a couple opportunities here where those parabolas broke that you might wanted to get out. You had the 200s turning down at that point. So I kind of went over a lot of that, I think, in the other video that I did. And so I'm just going to share those. Let's go to the 16-year cycle. And so I drew these on here. I think I want to be on the weekly time frame to have a better view of these. And so, yeah, so this is talking about the 16-year cycles and where we might be. I thought it was very interesting. I remember covering this last time, 204, 204. Those lined up perfect. I think I had some values down here. Did I not? Nope. And so the reason I'm pointing this one out, and I wanted to come back to this one, is because I do think if you follow Bob Lucas, he was expecting a left translated cycle this go round. And I did basically, what I did was I took the last two cycles just as the average, and I drew them out from the top to see where we would expect another potential top. And so that would be another 204 bars because I was measuring top to top. You can go bottom to bottom if you want, but I just went top to top in this case. And if that were to play out, just cutting that in half for this to be a left translated cycle, we would expect that to occur within 102 bars. And so the fact that this on the weekly has already touched the 200s, I think some people were talking about the 50-week SMA. I mean, I'm kind of curious, since I'm on here, let's just do an SMA, simple moving average. Is it going to take forever to draw that? It shouldn't. There it is. And then let's change this to the 50. Let's just change this to 50. And then I'm going to give it a little bit of a darker color so I can see it. Let's make it orange. There it is right there. Let's make it nice and thick. Where's it not let me change the thickness of that line? Am I blind? I must be missing it. So, all right, well, I don't see the, oh, you know, it's probably right here. Yeah, it is. All right, so let's make that nice and thick so it's a little easier to see. And then, so this is the 50-week moving average right here. Did I mess that up? Because that was like pretty far down there compared length, 50, yeah, okay. So 50-week SMA, we blasted through that. I thought some people were talking about that. Maybe I misunderstood because it seems like that's way off. In any case, the 200, we hit the 200-week EMA, and then we almost hit the 200-week SMA. And so let me go ahead and throw this off because I don't think that's very useful. And so we got like kind of a nice ABC looking thing here. And so I think that this, kind of going back to that. So I could see some potential for sure, this being a bottom if we were going to have a left translated cycle. And then I don't have anything that I'm drawing on here. Let's see what this brush looks like. Is that going to look bad? And so I would not be surprised also to see something like this and then just kind of tank out here, right? And so this would be somewhat of a dead count bounce. And this, I just drew this line. So 104, 106, I'm definitely not predicting that. I have no clue where it would go. I know if you are following Bob Lucas, he mentions, I think in multiple videos, when he was describing the left translated cycle, it could go higher, it could go lower. And so all I'm saying here is, if I were to look at this price and I drew it relatively at a slope that was relatively consistent with these other slope lines, and so I could totally see something like this where we're just putting in some lower highs, lower lows, and then we get up here. And again, I have a tendency to be long biased, so on the other side of that, I could see us just totally going sideways. I could also see us tanking. But my point about that is, if we're going to see a left translated cycle, I think that this would be a great area to have put in a bottom if you were looking for that. And so let's go ahead and look at the specific date there. It is going to be Monday the 20th, September 2027. So it has to peak before then if it's going to be a left translated cycle. And that is like a year and a half out, I think. So we have some time before that happens. And so even though on the weekly time frame, it looks like that would be happening pretty quick, there is quite a few days in between this time, actually over a year. And so just want to call that out. And I did want to touch on the whole like 16-year cycles. Well, the 4-year cycle. I wasn't really talking about the 16-year cycle in this context. And so, however, if I just kind of couple this into the 16-year cycle, so the 16-year cycle, we're expecting some kind of a peak within the land cycle, probably right around now in 2026 sometime. And so if that peaks out, other things tend to lag. And so we would expect stocks and commodities and all those things to kind of peak out. And so if those things are peaking out now, one, they could go farther. Two, we already saw a a pullback in silver and in gold. And I would not be surprised if they did something like this as well. And so if I was just surmising how those might fit together, that might be one way how it plays out. So let me go ahead and delete that line. Do I have it selected? I do, right? Boom, boom, boom. Oh, do I have all these brushes? Wow. All right. I didn't think I drew that many. All right. Okay. So I'll stop there for doing I do want to hide this for now because I don't want to look at it next time I'm on here. And so I'm going to turn these old ones back on so I don't forget. And then I do want to just go and take a real quick peek at gold and silver because I haven't looked at those recently. Let's look at gold first. So gold back up at 5,000-ish level here. So, oh my gosh, darn it. That's why I was doing that. Reset the view. Gold actually hitting a new all-time high on the weekly. What does it look like on the daily? Still low down from the high, so we haven't broken above here. So this is, again, the 2-day swing indicator. We got the trend down. This is on the weekly, so weekly is green. I was going to say, what's going on here? So this is the 1-day 2-bar, 1-day 1-bar, and then we have it's kind of hiding here, but this is the weekly 1-bar. And so for the weekly 2-bar to be bullish, if it looks like it's probably indeterminate right now, we would need to break above this high right here. So if we break above this high, then we'll actually be trending up on the weekly time frame. That's kind of interesting. So still looking bullish here, but if you didn't catch the top, be careful. It doesn't have to go higher. We could get a dead cat bounce. We could get fairly close to the top and then just pull back. So as always, make sure you're protecting your capital. I think adding money to this type of trade we're probably past that point in time. So it's probably time to make sure you take your gains and then just see where things land and give it some time to play out before we decide if we want to go higher or lower, or if we want to potentially take more longs or take some shorts on these things. Let's take a look at silver. Silver looking less good or less ideal. So yeah, still we're low here. So we got a lot of work to do if we're going to actually flip this trend around. Just basing out here, not surprising. We got and we're on the daily time frame here. So we got the 821 cross. So that was one signal to get out. This is currently trending down, so might be looking to see a touch of the 200s down here at about 50. So again, if you haven't got out yet, I mentioned that my stop limit, which was a bad idea in hindsight, ended up getting jumped, and so I did just go ahead and take some out so that I'd make sure I realized gain because I had gotten in quite a while ago. And so I just wanted to make sure I realized some gains from that. But if you haven't done that, I mean, we're almost at $80 again. I don't know that it's going to get all the way back up here. I would guess it probably won't, but I am not a fortune teller, so it definitely could. And so all I'm saying about that is, protect your capital. If you haven't already, you might want to pull some out if you've made some gains. Just so you don't give it all back. I have historically had a bad habit of doing that, and so just something I've learned is trying to be happy with the gains that you've got. Let's talk a little bit about psychology now that we're doing that, and this video is getting a little bit longer, but this will be the last bit. So on the psychological aspect of things, I do have some strategies. The Smasher strategy is one strategy. I like the Gann swing stuff. I like incorporating those together. However, one thing about all of those strategies, or both of those strategies in particular, is that they tend to pull profit out on the way down, meaning that you ride the trend all the way to the top and then you're waiting for some kind of downturn before you exit. I do not think that that is a bad idea. However, because I personally know that I am not the best at pulling the sell trigger, what I personally am going to work on executing a little bit better myself is pulling out more capital on the way up. And so I will likely still wait for the final signals to exit larger, well, not exit larger amounts, but potentially exit the latter 50% of positions that I put in. But for the first 50% of positions, I think what I'm going to look at implementing is pulling out chunks of that at different times when we're going up. That doesn't always necessarily mean it's going to be easy, because I also know I have played with that in the past. And the downside, the psychological downside of that is that you pull some out and then it keeps going up, and then you're just wishing, oh, I should have kept it in, because now I'd be making even more money. However, when it just specifically comes to selling, is it easier to sell on the way up, or is it easier to sell on the way down? And for my personal psychology, I find it easier to sell on the way up. And so I am working on some different plans for that, and kind of testing those things out to see how those work out statistically. So that'll be it for today. And back to, I think, a planning day for me, so I can get a lot more work done this week. And we will catch you on the next one. Peace, Quants.